switchbacks that we were talking about earlier with guardrails and narrow, steep grades.
Yeah. And
my goodness.
There,
were you able to see through your other eye?
I didn't think I had a right eye. I couldn't
so
find my
this
right
was all
eye.
still with your eye that was hanging?
Yeah.
And how many kilometers was it from where the truck was parked to the resort?
No, 20-ish, 22, 18 to 20 kilometers.
Looking on that map, it looked like it was quite a ways.
Yeah,
it's quite a ways. About a half-hour drive.
You know, I'm going to bring that map up again, just kind of reference, because now that we've heard your story, it's going to, I think, give us a different perspective. I think appreciation for the distance, because was it 14 kilometers? I think is what you 17 from the truck to where you were mauled. So now you've made it 17 kilometers. Like, that's a huge feat. What time of day was this? Getting later in the day now?
So I got to my truck about 3:45.
Mauled at 9:36. 36.
Yeah, 9:36. I get the picture.
Time stamped with the selfie.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you're keeping such accurate memory on time and stuff?
Selfie.
What kind of phone were you rocking at the time?
iPhone.
Okay.
Real fancy iPhone.
Yeah.
So where are we at here
Version
again?
1 of 20.
With a 3-hour battery life.
Oh no, the battery life was good because it played Baby Shark the whole way. And it played right until I got to my truck, and when I got to Panther River, it was still playing in my truck at full blast when I got to Panther River.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still
that many hours of Baby Shark might have pushed me over the edge.
You got to go north. Just keep following Highway 40 there.
The zigzag.
Right,
there's a zigzag.
Yeah. And then you go stop right there. Yeah, no, turn on satellite view. Okay, now follow that road. Yeah.
There. Yeah, this looks like where we were before. It kind of comes through the foothills.
Zoom in a little bit more. Okay, now there's mountain air, so go south. Yeah. Oops. There's Panther River. So I'll follow that road back to the southwest. Yep. And keep going down. So there's that big switchback. Nope.
Down.
Right down this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go. Those leases you're talking about.
Yeah. So keep on going down, keep going. And yeah, right there's my truckers park where you most just
right here.
No, farther
south.
The next intersection.
Yeah, next intersection.
Right there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, kind of where the tail end of the mouse is. Yeah. Yeah, right there. That's where the gate is. Yeah.
Right here. Okay. So that's where your truck was, and you were down over here.
Yeah, farther west.
Just want to keep that in the picture. We'll just go
keep no, the drainage above. Yeah, and I'll go straight west down that drainage to the big green spot a little bit further down. No, further west down there. Keep going more and more and more. Right there.
So from here,
yeah,
all the way to over here.
And there's no sheep in there.
And there's no sheep in there.
None.
That is.
There's grizzly bears.
A hell of a long ways. I've heard about that actually.
just one that I know of.
And your truck is here, and you are now your next destination.
The Panther.
Lodge. So up where it says maps on your. Right, yeah, it's yep.
Where's the
your mouse was go straight up from there. Now right to your right a little bit.
Zoom in, it'll pop out.
Yep, straight north now. Right there.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
How are the amenities there?
They were awesome.
Beautiful lodge.
They had great ice cold water with no ice in the straw. I mean, that was really good.
Yeah.
So this lodge, what is it? Is it off? This is off the highway?
No, it's off of. It's all gravel in there, and so at the lodge is you can stay in cabins right there at Panther River, right on the Panther River. So they got, I think there's like 6 cabins and a bunch of canvas tents. They do trail rides. You can
weddings.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So
We'll get to that though.
Yeah.
Don't jump ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so where you're driving back and you've got to get through all those switchbacks, and you're just using the lighter shades of the road as a reference to be able to stay on the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a bumpy ride.
And that got you all the way to this lodge we're talking about now?
Yeah.
So were you ping-ponging off of guardrails and stuff like that, or was it just really slow?
The guardrails up there were just steel posts with cable stretching in between them. I thought I was driving kind of more in the ditch. I could feel like the big rocks in the ditch.
Yep.
I don't remember a lot of the driving. I just remember I guess driving, but it was very bumpy, and I remember it took forever. It seemed like it took forever. Probably at least a half hour, 45 minutes. It was quite the trek. Like I just remember, I thought it was like scraping along the trees, and like I thought my truck was totaled when I got to the lodge. I honestly thought it was. I just, the way it felt, and I couldn't tell. And of course, I'd never ran into anybody on the road, which is not surprising, but I was disappointed.
Yeah.
So I get to the turnoff for Panther River, and at this time it's like a 2 ruts to get into their place. Like it wasn't like a well-known spot. Well, it kind of was, but their driveway wasn't that open.
Yeah.
So
Still
I pulled
back road.
Yeah. So I pulled into the driveway and into the parking lot, and there's a bunch of vehicles there. So I tried to park in between a Jeep and a truck, and I couldn't fit in there confidently enough. So I was trying to park, and I gave up, and I said, screw this. I'm just going to drive up to the front of the lodge where you're not supposed to. So I drove past the do not enter sign, and I felt guilty about it.
That feelings you have, they're getting in the way.
I know. So I drove right past the sign, got out of my truck and kind of looking around, make sure no one saw me. Right? No. I pulled right up to, they have like a ramp that you can walk up. So I parked right in front of the ramp, and I walked up. Their lodge is shaped like an octagon, and they have a deck that goes all around the west side of it, and so like a log cabin kind of built, and the roof comes down. And I remember I was there the weekend before, we stayed there, and if you weren't paying attention, you'd smack your head on the logs coming down because just how tall it was. So I was walking kind of close, like on the deck, didn't really know where I knew where the building was, but I was just kind of walking around, make sure I didn't smack my head on any of these logs sticking out. And they got these big bay windows all along the side, and I just remember seeing like a shadow of somebody something little move away from the window. And I was near the door, and I found the door, and I was opening up the door, and I remember this like a young kid's voice saying, grandma, somebody's trying to play a prank on us. Of course, I'm doing the zombie walk, and walking in, and
with your injuries and twigs everywhere.
Yeah.
Are they filming Thriller here?
So I opened the door, and creaks, and you just hear this kid, and I was like, no, I just got mauled by a bear. I need some help. And it's like, and I had my wallet and my phone, and like call my wife, and this is who I am, and I need some help, and there's like, anything we can do for you? I'm like, yeah, I need a glass of medium temperature water, no ice, and a straw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was very descriptive.
They must have just jumped.
No, their service wasn't very good. It took them a while to get it.
Were they in shock?
Well, the one lady was like, are you okay? No. They were kind of like standing there staring, like they didn't know what to do, right?
He's just sitting there in shock.
Yeah. So the one lady grabs me a glass and gets the medium temperature water and puts a straw in it and hands it to me there. And the other one ran out the door to go
call for help.
Yeah, to get Amanda. She's one of the owners, and it was her, Amanda, and her mom, and her son was there. Her son was 9 years old. He was the first person to see me, and so I'm sitting there in the lodge, sucking back my water, sitting on the like tables in there, and I can hear one talking on the phone, and you can just hear people running back and forth. So I hear him sitting at the table and bleeding all over the place. So I grabbed some napkins and I started to clean the floor and the table because it was blood everywhere. And And I remember the one lady was just yelling at me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm cleaning up. I made a mess." And she's like, "Yeah, just like relax." And so I got this glass of water. She's like, "Sit down." And then of course I'm making a big mess. And they had it was around like 4:30, I'm gonna say. They were having a wedding was just coming in. They're gonna do a wedding out there. So all the parties started showing up. So was going to show up. So they had to get me out of the lodge because I just look too pretty at this point.
Yeah,
Bad for return business.
Yeah,
you make the groom look bad.
Yeah. Can I be the ring bearer? Bear. So they got me to my truck and drove me around the backside of the lodge, and they were trying to figure out like what to do. They were calling for an ambulance or stars, and I just remember sitting in my truck and on the passenger side, and I had these Gatorade bottles rolling around the floorboard, and I couldn't open them or anything. And I asked the one lady, like, "Can you like open up that Gatorade for me there and like stick a straw in it?" So they did, and I was like just sucking that back, and it was so good. I just remember that I just sucked it right back, and then they opened up the second. There's two bottles there, 2 1-liter bottles, and I was just sucking them back. I was, exhausted and
dehydrated.
Yeah, and then the girls are running back and forth, and you hear running through the gravel. I'm like, guys, like, calm down. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm just missing my face. Just, I don't need you getting hurt. And so I was yelling at him, telling him to calm down. Like, it's no big deal. I made it this far, like, there's not.
Sense of relief now, though, for you. Like, as far as now, you're on the home stretch, is help. But how was your fatigue? Like, before you were having a hard time. Like, you set your phone to go off with the alarm to keep, things going. And it's easy to try and we need to get back into, I think, the moment too, because, were you fatigued? What was that like for you? Was it a struggle or?
When I got to there, I was kind of relieved, and then after the Gatorade, I felt pretty good. I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go again. Let's go for a walk."
And now that you had help there, it wasn't where you were fighting, going to sleep, but you were just starting to feel optimistic now, as far as you made it. You got to where you needed to go.
Yeah, I got out, and my I guess goal now switched to keeping everybody calm so I could get out.
Yeah,
because I didn't want everybody to go in panic mode, and then that would directly affect me. So I was trying to keep everybody calm so that they could help me. Because when people are not calm and they're freaking out, they're making irrational decisions, which would thus affect me, and I probably wouldn't make it. Yeah. So now my goal switched to keeping everybody calm, keeping the situation calm, so they can make clear decisions to get me out of here, to get me help. So then, I was sitting in my truck in the passenger side, and they had this young lady. She was 18 years old, and she was sitting at the against the door, passenger door of the truck that was open, and we're sitting there in kind of an awkward situation. She wouldn't look me in the eye or anything. I don't know why. And we're sitting there, and I was like, "So, how old are you?" And she would respond, like, "Do you have a boyfriend? Like, what do you look like? What do you do here?" It's just like the 20 questions, right? The most awkward conversation. I'm looking at her, she's staring off into space, and just going back and forth. And there's it wasn't the game word, but there was like some park rangers end up showing up, and I just remember hearing some yelling and like, "Get over there, he's over there, help him." And this guy comes over, and he comes up from the side of the truck, and he gets up to the truck, and he's like, "Hey, I'm so and so." And I turned around and like look at him, and he just freaked out, and he had this towel he tried putting on my face, and of course I screamed because of it hurt. And the guy was just, I don't know, he just he was in shock, and he ended up walking in the back of the truck. And I just remembered, like, I can tell he's like heaving or throwing up, it kind of sounded like.
Wow.
And then he left, and then yeah, he's just like, "I'm tapping out. That's just too much for me," right? Like, So one of the other ladies was like yelling. I'm like, "Aren't you gonna help him?" And he just, I don't know, like there was something going on. I think it was a little too much for him. So and the mannequin running over, and she's like, "Okay, the helicopter is going to be here in about like half hour, right? It's coming." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." So I'm like, "Okay, now the helicopter's coming." So we're at Panther River, and it's late August. So the bull trout fishing is absolutely amazing there. So I got out of the truck and the one lady was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going fishing." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's 45 minutes till the helicopter gets here. We're next to a world-class bull trout fishing stream. I'm going fishing." And she's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "Yes, I am." So I had the door open. I'm trying to get my fishing rod. You know, my fingers are all messed up. I'm trying to get the case out. And Amanda's like, "Get back in your truck." I'm like, "I'm going to go fishing." She goes, "No, like, get in your truck. Like, what are you doing?" So I'm in my truck there. And then I'm like, "Okay, can you take off my boots?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Why not?" You know, and she's like, "No, leave your boots on. Like, just stay put. Don't move." I'm like, "Well, okay, you're nice." So then the helicopter lands and I go hobbling over there and get in the helicopter, and they got this, it was a really nice fancy helicopter by the look and, you know, the feel of it. It looked pretty awesome. I get in there and of course they were so polite. They laid out a tarp, nice big blue tarp, and like, you know, get on the tarp, don't get your blood anywhere. And so
So was this Stars or
No, this was
you missed a chunk. Whose helicopter was it?
Oh, this was the so Stars wasn't able to come out, and the ambulance didn't know where to go because, of course, we're in the middle of nowhere. And it's pretty hard to describe. You know, go down a gravel road for like 3K, take a right down the two-rut road.
Outside of city limits, they're not doing too good.
Yeah, what's the road? So Amanda ended up calling her dad and said, "We need you down here to fly this guy out. He's in pretty rough shape." So it was
private helicopter, her family helicopter.
Yeah, her dad's helicopter. He had it's like a 6-seater turbo jet, pretty sweet helicopter.
Yeah,
I've ridden it a few times since, but it's pretty awesome
under much better circumstances.
Yeah, way better.
They're pulling all the stops though. Like in that moment of, you know, frantic, they're pretty much coming together. That is a family run lodge then.
Family run lodge, and then a couple of ladies working there. Yeah, everybody knew each other and lived in.
Shout out to the family. Yeah, what's the family's last name? I
just can't pronounce it. I can't.
We can look it up, but shout out to the family. I mean, they're pulling through in a big way.
Sure. They're awesome. They're if anybody out there needs help, he's there to help.
Yeah,
like they jump right in. Saffrons. Yeah. They're Terry Saffron, he's an awesome guy. He owns a small oil company there around the Eckville area. He's very popular, very well known, and he's always out there willing to give everybody a helping hand anytime they need help. He's flown out lots of people in similar circumstances, like have broken hips or.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he's the local
hero. Yeah,
rescue.
Yeah, pretty much. He's an awesome guy. He's a very down to earth, very helpful.
And he was able to get you. So like, where did they fly?
Well, now this thing. So we get in the helicopter, and it was either fly to Calgary or fly to Sundre. And you know, flying to Calgary is like 45 minutes. Sundre is like 20 minutes, kind of thing, or maybe it was closer to an hour to Calgary. Anyways, so I'm in the helicopter, and I don't get the fancy headsets because I didn't really have any ears to put the headsets on, so I couldn't hear anything. And everybody's got their fancy headsets, and I hear I'm stuck in this nice little blue tarp, and we're taking off, and I'm like, "Oh, we're in the mountains. It'd be great to look out the window for, you know, see the scenery." But, you know, of course I can't see. So I'm trying to, I mean, it wasn't working, but I lean out to look out the window, and every time I go look out the window, I feel this sharp pain on my left side. And I turn to look, and Amanda be sitting there, and I turn to look at her, and she pulled this blue tarp up. I'm like, "Well, okay, fine. I don't want to talk to you either." So I look back out the window, and I'd be looking out the window, and I feel the sharp pain again. And I turn around, and I'm like, "What?" And of course, she pulled the blue tarp up again. So I'm like, "What are we, like, playing peekaboo here? Like, leave me alone. I'm just looking out the window." So she thought I was passing out, and she was trying to wake me up. And so,
she's just poking you to try and get your attention.
She leans into the window.
Leaning into the window. She think I'm passing out when I'm really just trying to look out the window and see the scenery. But I mean, you got to have functioning eyes to do that. So I was really trying to, and so they decided they're going to fly to Sundre because I kept passing out. Well, really, I was just looking out the window, and she'd poke me to wake me up. And when I turned to look at her, I was squirting all blood, and so she was trying to cover herself with the tarp and the rest of the helicopter from getting blood everywhere. But of course, I'm thinking she's like, you know, playing peekaboo with me, like, "God, no, I don't want to look at you." And
the amount of blood you must have lost though over this duration of time.
I don't. I don't recall. I mean,
Well, I mean, it's pretty hard for you to have a pretty good understanding of it all, but like you're in that moment, how do you keep the awareness of it all?
I lost 262 mils.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping track.
But
how
I
many
mean,
drops.
that you're staying conscious.
Yeah, I was pretty calm and fully conscious. Like I knew what was going on, I knew the surroundings. I knew everything was going on. Like I was fully aware.
Yeah.
We landed in Sundre, and that was kind of interesting. So we landed, and I just remember you see a bunch of shapes of people standing outside the door, and the door of the helicopter opens up, and there's like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 people standing there, and they're like, doot, 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 like, hey, how's it going? And I turned and said hi. And that's when panic set in. People just like, everybody went everywhere, just like, holy crap. One of the doctors tried cutting through the back of the helicopter. They're trying to pull me out, and one of the doctors decided to cut through the back, but the helicopter had an open tail rotor. And so Amanda, she was beside me, she jumps out, dives underneath the helicopter, tackles this doctor to the ground, trying to hold him back because he almost walked into the rotor.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm sitting there, and they're trying to pull me out. So she's wrestling this doctor, telling him about yelling at him about the blades. Of course, you can't hear nothing. And there's like 3 people trying to drag me out, and she's yelling at them like, he got in the damn helicopter, he can get out himself. There's just panic going on. So I'm trying to get out. My leg is seized up in a straight line. I'm trying to get it over top of the chair in front of me, and everybody's just panicking, and I'm just like screw off, I can get out. And she's yelling, and then I can just feel these arms come from behind me and wrap around me, and this little nurse, maybe weighing 100 pounds, just grabbed me, picked me up, and slid me out the helicopter out the other door side, just like nothing. And they threw me in a gurney and took me into the Sundre emergency room. And of course, their emergency room is like massive. Like it's like probably the size of this room with a bed and a curtain. And there's a few people sitting in chairs there, and I'm sitting in there like, hey, sorry guys, I guess I get to go first. I'm a little more injured.
Yeah.
It's the emergency room and corner store all in one.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Put them beside the Doritos.
Yeah. So I was in there, and of course, game wardens are in there. And then the first thing they do is they cut all my clothes off of me. So I'm laying there butt naked, and they tried to take the tourniquet off my head and stuff and my hands. And I was fighting with them and yelling at them. And Amanda's sitting there yelling at him. And she's like, for God's sakes, don't you guys have any decency? Cover him up, and then they were bending my knee, and that was causing a lot of pain. So I grabbed one of the doctors and was like ready to hit him. And they're like, it was just a big mess, and they didn't really know what to do with me. And then they had me laying down, and they drilled a hole into my collarbone and was giving me some antibiotics, and they're just stunned, like they didn't know. And so I was talking with the game wardens, like, where did this happen? And I handed my phone and gave them the coordinates and everything, and told them what happened. And then they're waiting to see if Stars was going to pick me up or what was going to happen. So there was no, I guess Stars was busy or too windy or something.
They definitely weren't set up for a trauma situation like what they were trying to manage with you. So obviously they were planning to try and get you to Calgary.
Yeah, because Sundre, I mean, they could put a Band-Aid on you. And
yeah, that's about it. They're
stabilize you.
Slightly better than a walk-in clinic. Like they're just not set up for.
No, they're not set up. It's
like
an
that.
Older population there, so they do a lot with like heart and heart attacks.
Yeah.
So,
can you touch back on the whole collarbone and antibiotics?
Yeah, I just remember they had this like cordless drill and just bzzz, and then they stuck a needle in. One of the nurses there, her husband had been bit by a bear, quite a few years ago, and he had some massive infections. So she just instinctively got some antibiotics that they used on her husband.
Makes sense.
Just to do something. Like they didn't know what to do.
So drilling into like.
That's kind of what I question, is the whole drilling in. Are they injecting it into the bone marrow? I
just remember them drilling in, and I didn't like it. There's so many things happening at once. There's like 4 or 5 people like just ripping apart things, and I just remember it was a weird feeling.
At the end of the day, I think that was a pretty good call on the antibiotic at the very least. I mean, let's try and help this guy out. But you're right. I mean, bears. Anything that's a predator. It typically doesn't have a very the bacteria and chances for infection are pretty high.
Very high. So then they got the ambulance and they laid me down in a gurney, and I couldn't have my head flat because when my back of my head would touch the back of the pillar of the gurney, it would just be excruciating pain. So while I'm laying down, they had to have a doctor was holding my head kind of off the pillow and kind of holding it together because it just keeping pressure on everything, and so I can lay down. So then I'm in the ambulance, and this one doctor's holding my head, and they get the paramedic sitting over top of me, and I'm laying down, and they couldn't figure out where they're going to intubate me from because the breath was coming out of in between my forehead, in between my eyes. There's skull's all busted open there, and that was where the kind of air is going out, kind of where my nose, above where my nose should be. And so laying down, I'd be choking on blood or couldn't breathe. So me and the ambulance driver had little hand signals. He didn't allow me to talk when I was in there. He wanted me to use hand signals. So I'd stick my thumb between my index and middle finger for I'd suck it out of my nose because that's where it was. And if I did like alligators, my hands, I meant out of my mouth to suck up the blood. So we communicated that way, had all these fancy hand signals, and so they nice ambulance ride to Calgary, and we pulled up to the Foothills Hospital, and
that's how they got you. They didn't get the helicopter back to transport you by air.
No, Amanda and Terry there, they wanted to fly me to Calgary, but they couldn't release me back again.
Oh, okay.
So
once you're in their care, then because the helicopter wasn't equipped, I get it.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So then because they
that's probably not a bad call, you know that. I mean, at this point, the ambulance, at least you have, I guess you can make an argument.
You got the medical professionals with you at that point as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
But did a doctor ride with you?
Yeah, I had a doctor holding my head together, and then the paramedic, and then the driver. Yeah. It was a full ambulance. So yeah, we zipped into Calgary, and we pulled up to Calgary. They're doing construction in the emergency room. So the
man, what is it about this story? Like, it's a lodge, no one's there. The every roadblock possible. I mean, unreal.
It was an adventure.
I'm telling you.
So we get to there, and they had to wheel me through basically where everybody else is in the emergency room. So they wheeled me all past all the driver or everybody that's standing in line for the emergency room. And I remember they wheeled me past my family. I didn't know, but they saw me go through with me basically missing my face.
They managed to get a hold of your family by this time.
Yeah, my family.
Oh, man.
They called them when I was in Sundre. They contacted, I think the RCMP called my wife and contacted her, let her know. And of course, my wife called my mom and my sisters, and
though I mean, once your family gets word, I mean,
they were sitting there waiting for me, and so they wheeled me through into the right into the back right away, and they asked me if I needed anything. I told them I wanted to talk to my wife and see her, so they were going to go get her, but I told them that they had to cover my face up because I was missing, and I didn't want my wife to see it.
Hold on one sec, not to interrupt you, but I think now would be a really good time for a whiskey. Are you into whiskey? Actually, rum. You like rum?
Whiskey
or water?
Surprise me.
Let's do the wild turkey.
Gobble gobble.
Yeah. We'll try it out. Well, this is the story, part of the story where it's almost celebratory. We're definitely on the home stretch. Are you getting help?
Yes, finally. So they put a towel on my face and called my wife in. She came in and got to say goodbye to her and let her know that I tried, and I'm gonna miss her and the monster, because I was afraid of them putting me out for surgery and me not waking up. So now, I'm in there. Yes, I feel safe, but now it comes to I've never been put out for surgery before. So this is a new thing for me. And so I going back down that bad road again, thinking that things are not going to work out. So when they were wheeling me down, I, of course, kind of started breaking down and was getting pretty scared. One of the doctors there, I remember she was the green-eyed doctor. I just remember her leaning over top of me, right close to my face with the flashlight and stuff, and I can just see she had these bright green eyes and the kindest of voices. And she held my hand and she says, "Don't worry, I won't let your hand go. I'll be here beside you the whole time." And she would, they did X-rays, CT scans, and she was right there
The whole time.
holding my hand the whole time and let me know. And it was very comforting because, you know, I didn't want to be alone and I didn't want to fall asleep, and I'm laying down. And of course, I'm drifting in and out of consciousness. And it was just always nice to have somebody there. Then they wheeled me into the surgery room. You know, I was probably doing a bunch of tests for like at least a half hour or so of tests. And then they wheeled me into the emergency room. And another doctor joined in, another female doctor, and she had brown eyes. And so they're both standing over me and talking to me. And one was holding each hand and they're massaging my hand. And they were telling me the process was going on. And they give you like this charcoal green slime stuff to drink. So they give me this and try to choke it down. You know, it tastes so good. So they're feeding me this and they're telling me that they're going to stick a tube down my throat and then, you know, to count backwards. And I was pretty scared. I told them that. And so they were, doctor massaging his hand. And then I remember this Aussie voice coming, "Don't worry, dude, I got you down here." And he was massaging my feet. And then I just remember putting the tube down. And then I kind of, well, I guess, went under. And I remember the surgery though. I remember this little Asian guy stitching my hand together and doing some work on my finger. And then I remember the short bald guy stitching up my knee. And quite a while in, this other doctor, real tall guy, coming in, like a biker's beard and stuff, and he was talking about what they're going to do. And I just remember them stitching my face. And
so, okay, that's what I was wondering. So they're working on you and they're helping you out, and you're conscious the whole time here still.
Yeah, it's kind of like being like in the movie Saw. Like,
and
I
so
couldn't feel nothing.
They gave you a sedative.
Yeah, they knocked me out, but I wasn't like fully out.
Were you supposed to be out cold?
Yeah, I was,
but you weren't.
But I wasn't. Like, I can see everything that was going on and hear what was going on, but I couldn't do anything about it. It was a weird feeling, like in and out. Like, I remember all the people in the room. I was describing them, and
they thought that you were out the whole time.
Yeah, and I remember the tube. So when they did the second surgery, I told the guy, like, "Please make sure I'm out before you stick the tube in." And the guy's like, "No, you're out." I'm like, "No, I wasn't. You stuck that orange tube down my throat, and that sucked. I hated that. Like, I don't like that feeling. It was horrible." And the guy's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Make sure I'm out." And so then the third surgery, they did some tests or whatever, and they gave me more juice to knock me out. I was a pretty big dude. Like, I weighed, 250 some pounds. So I needed a little more than the average person, I guess.
Like, it goes back to what I said earlier. Every little thing in the story.
Yeah, everything went right. I'm here.
It did.
I'm here.
It did. You're actually absolutely. But Jeremy,
nothing went wrong.
It's
everything
a hell of a, I mean, very good. Fascinating story. So you got through that surgery and then what, you were able to, like, the moment now where you're reuniting with family.
So they woke me up. I did the first surgery, it was like 13 hours. And then I remember them, I guess they woke me up in the ICU. And at first, when I tried pulling the tube out and everything, and I was fighting, so they had to pull me back under again, remove the tube, and then bring me awake. And I remember being in there and I couldn't see anything. My eyes were like crusted shut, swollen shut, and the doctors were like opening my eyes and shining lights and stuff in there. And and I remember talking to the game warden. There was a game warden in there, and he was wanting to do an interview right away, and which is fine. So we did the interview, and I remember like falling asleep, and then the bear chewing on me, like, it just back and forth. It was just constant, every 15, 20 minutes I'd drift off, and then the bear's chewing on me again, and then of course I'm be shaking and breathing heavy and just in a horrible state. And one of my good friends was at the foot of the bed, and he just would grab my left foot, is the only thing that was exposed and that didn't have any injuries on it. He'd squeeze it, and he'd tell me I'm in a safe place. It's okay, I'm in a safe place. And he used to do that every time that I have a little nightmare or get in that situation. And that really helped. In that first day, I asked for help, psychiatric help, right away. I just, it was going to be a tough battle. And that's the first thing I did. And it, you know, it's hard to tell somebody like, hey, I need help with this. Like, and, you know, I mean, I may be a tough guy, but I'm not mentally strong. Like that was hard. So the first day, me in an ICU, big struggle, you know, like all these tubes and everything hooked up to you. And then they were going to take me for the second surgery, and I was pretty pale and kind of cold. And I was complaining about how cold I was. And my wife mentioned something about blood, and they decided to give me a unit of blood, and I perked right up again and got my color back, and I felt pretty good. And then right after that, they wheeled me down for round 2 of surgery, where they put the rest of my face back together. And I guess I didn't have all the pieces because there's a large chunk of my head that was still missing. So
did they have your eyelids in round 1 of surgery?
Yeah.
Again, I just keep thinking about how uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, so
all the
that's
time when
no, they put the mask
put your
back on.
eyelids.
Yeah, they put the mask back on.
Yeah,
stitched it in place.
And everything worked. Like you could blink.
No, I still can't blink.
You have a little bit of control though.
A little bit. Like I don't blink. I kind of just stare off some space.
Yeah,
Do your eyes water constantly because of that?
Yeah, I don't have any drainage. My tear ducts got pulled out, and then they tried doing it twice, the surgery, but it wasn't successful. So I just, whatever, it is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Wow. This was obviously one right after the other. Then the way you were describing your surgeries, this was like a they wanted to make sure tissue wasn't dying off to be able to get it reattached.
Well, they had to fix my ear and the side of my face. My face was like kind of drooping, and they had to stitch it up. And
so what about the fear of blood clots? Like that's got to be huge, I would assume, with all that you went through, with all the dried up components. Then you slap the skin back over top of it. I would assume that there's high risk for blood clots and breaking free. And
I just remember used to give me these needles every couple hours for blood clots. It drove me nuts. I hate needles.
Yeah,
I just stick them in everywhere. Like, ugh.
Wow, that's quite a. So, did you have to go through a process to be in between each surgeries, or was it just one after the other? They finished the surgery, and then
I get to sleep for a couple of hours,
and then you're right back in there again.
Yeah. So the first one was 12, 13 hours, and then I had a day of relaxation, and then went in for another 12-hour surgery.
Yeah.
And then, back to the spa, right? Sponge baths. No. So yeah, they did two long surgeries, and then I got left alone for a little bit to I guess catch up on rest and whatnot. And then I don't know, I think around like day 8 is when they started to pull staples out and stitches out, which there was just a few.
I can imagine. So one of the things that I think a lot of the people who've gone through experiences like this really want to make sure that there's some sincere, I think, appreciation, I guess is the word I was looking for, when it comes to the rescuers and the people that were involved in that whole process of, helping, these people out. And that's been expressed to me a few times. And a lot of the people that I've talked to that, I've been wanting to bring on to share their story, one of the first things that they're mentioning is that it wasn't their story. It was just as much about the people that were involved and it was about them. And so is that something that, is with you too, is the appreciation for, some of these nurses and the doctors that were involved, and, the support, and maybe, some of the experiences that your wife had gone through and whatnot, where, you want to make sure there's, acknowledgement and appreciation for these people that had, you know, kind of helped you through some of this?
I had some spectacular nurses that worked at the Foothills Hospital in burn unit 33 when I was there. I had some incredible nurses. I had one nurse, she was a charge nurse, lots, and she worked night shift. She'd come in at 5 a.m. every morning and would clean out my eyes because my eyes would be all kind of glued shut from all the pus and everything. And she would clean out my eyes every morning, come in there, and we called it our 5 a.m. date. So she'd come in and clean my eyes. And when I had visitors come over, she would shave and trim my beard up, and she would shave and trim me and make me look pretty, you know, help me look pretty. And I mean, I look pretty darn good in those hospital miniskirts, I got to say. I looked really good. And so, you know, there's actually two of the nurses there that would clean my eyes. One was in there, the other one would. They would help me dress, and my wife got me this real nice plaid shirt to wear, and they would help me put it on when I had visitors, you know, because sometimes just to help look a little bit more decent. And, you know, they cut my hair I had left, and they're very good. Very, you know, they treated me very well. They actually would fight over who got to pick my nose or
Oh wow,
to like squeeze the pus out of my face, because you know they'd squeeze it and move it all around. And I mean, the best part was when they shoved gauze up my nose, and I couldn't breathe, and they had that in for like at least 3-4 days, and I kept complaining about it. No one knew what to do with it. So finally they got a word from the doctor, said, yeah, go ahead and pull it out. Well, one of the nurses comes and pulls it out and looked like a clown. It just kept coming and coming out. And it was this huge piece. When they pulled it out, it just felt so good to have it out of there. And then, you know, they pulled the other side out, and like it was, you know, probably 6 inches long. It felt like,
wow,
of gauze, because it was in my nose, and you feel it in the top of your roof of your mouth, and like a cotton mouth. But then
that's horrible.
How did you survive that?
I don't know. I mean, but then your nose would dry out, and it, you know, of course, everything would bleed, and you get all this pus. So then you get like these massive boogers, and of course, you can't do nothing because you know, my fingers are all in bandages, and I couldn't
bandages, swelling, you know, pain management. The healing process is severe.
Yeah, and like, I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. You'd have to like ask nurse, hey, can you like pick my nose? And they'd be like, oh, really? And they all get excited, right? They come out there and they get like this little gel stuff, and they get these little Q-tips, and they get it all nice and wet, get the tweezers out, and they're like, oh, this is a really big booger today. And like, it was, there was some other nurses really enjoyed it because they get to play. and I didn't complain much. Well, I hope I didn't. But they would come in, and we'd have fun. We'd joke around, we'd laugh, we'd have, you know, just have fun with it. Like, what else am I gonna do? I'm laying there. I mean, they're pulling out stitches and staples, and they're like, you know, does that hurt? I'm like, oh yeah, that was horrible. Or you just, you know, joke around. And I mean, they felt bad doing it, but
man, I love your attitude. You know that? It's just freaking awesome. It's such a very positive, I think, outlook on it. It's one of those things where it's almost I don't know, it's reassuring and refreshing in a lot of ways. I don't know why, but
so many people would have been, oh, woe is me.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is the most horrific thing, and it is not to make light of it, because it is the most horrific thing that someone could go through. But your outlook, and I mean, to hear you tell the story, to read the book and read your words, and every part of the way when you're interacting with people, or your outlook on, let me clean this up. I'm so sorry for how I left this. Like, it is such a breath of fresh air that your positivity shines, and your positive personality and outlook is just phenomenal.
Just because I got mauled by a bear doesn't mean I have to be rude and mean to everybody else. No, it didn't.
No, but that's the takeaway. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier too, which I wanted to touch on, because this story, I think, is going to have an impact on, who knows, a lot of people. We had mentioned earlier that some of these experiences and you know, scenarios have been seeming to be coming a little more common lately, especially this year. You know, Aaron is in Dawson Creek, and I know of 3 people right now just this year alone who have had, you know, very serious encounters with wildlife. And this does have a longer mental effect. Sometimes that could be a little more impactful than even the physical injuries. And I think that's what a lot of people grapple with. And to hear a story and your perspective and how you're managing it, I think is something that's got a lot of value for people who have gone through scenarios like that. And we were talking about PTSD, which is something I'd like to touch on, because these are things that I know you had experienced. And how do you navigate through that and manage it? That is probably one of the more underrated experiences that a lot of people are still becoming more aware of. And I think, whether there's a little bit of an understanding on how to deal with it or not, I don't think the general public and the perception of it is where maybe it should be. So
it's a hard thing to admit and ask for that psychiatric help. I mean, it's a very hard thing to do, and it was hard for me, but it's one of those things I knew I needed to do because I needed help with it. And something was wrong, and I need somebody to help me, guide me through that. Like I don't know how to accomplish that on my own, and you can't. It's hard.
What did you do for help? Like you kind of touched on it. You mentioned it at the beginning. When you were going through surgeries, you started having, moments of where
nightmares and flashbacks.
Exactly. That was an early onset of it. How did you manage to get through all of that?
It was very, very, very tough. It was constant. We had to have somebody in the hospital 24/7 with me, because if I went into a flashback or having a nightmare, what do you do? And I was a pretty big guy, and your first thing would be try to restrain the person, is what everybody saw it as when somebody was flaring, trying to hold them down, and that just made it worse because it, like the bear did. The bear held me down, and so I'd get more and more violent. And I was just trying to train people or have my family there to squeeze my feet, tell me in a safe place, and that'd get me out of the nightmare almost instantly. So it was a struggle all throughout the hospital. When I got out, it was all the time. And I mean, there was some points in time we'd find the triggers, and how we did that would I'd keep a diary, and I'd keep track of what I ate, the stresses in the day, what things happen, my sleep patterns, and things that happened before or after the flashback. It was like the closest thing I could remember what happened, to try to help me figure out what the triggers were, so things to stay away from. One of the things that we found was a trigger was when you take an ice tray and you take out the freezer and you twist it to crack it. Well, that sound of that ice popping out sounds like when your skull's getting crushed by a bear. That's kind of what it sounds like. And that at work, one guy was getting a glass of water and putting ice in it. When he did that, it put me into a flashback.
It was a trigger.
It was a trigger, and that was just instantaneous. Put me right into that moment where the bear is dragging me back off for round 3.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people aren't quite as aware of, including myself up until just today when we were talking, is that a lot of these triggers and scenarios happen in day-to-day activities. So it could be work, you could be broad daylight, and something, a sound, a smell, a sight, something can trigger it, and you go into, well, what happens like when that, like, do you go into a trance? Or
so it's just like you're reliving the event over again. So when for instance, when someone does like the ice tray and you hear the ice breaking, it brings me back right to the moment where the bear grabbed me by the back of the head and pulled me back into the bush. It brings me right back into that, as if the bear's chewing on me. So certain things just it bring me back and to relive that.
And when you say it pulls you back, is that is there a disconnection with reality, and now you're in that moment?
Yeah, it's just a total like disconnect, like you're getting beamed somewhere. Like it's just instant. You're you be walking down the street and all of a sudden a bear's chewing on you, and you're in the forest and a bear's chewing on you. Like,
and at that time, you don't even know what the trigger was, and that you're experiencing that until you've gotten through it. And now you realize what had happened after, a period of time.
Yeah.
That's in itself an experience that's got to be a little bit
well, it's very confusing because when you go into it and you're getting attacked by the bear and then you get brought out of it, you're like, well, where am I?
Happened?
And it's kind of like having two dreams in one. So you go into the moment, the bear's chewing on it, and then all of a sudden you bring back to reality and you're thinking, the bear is just here, it's coming back. And so even though you're in your room, and you're out of the dream, like you don't see any trees or anything around, but you're still thinking the bear's coming back. So it's like a double whammy. It's just,
is it like, how when you have a dream and then you wake up and like the wife is really pissed off at you because you cheated or something stupid, and you're like, man, that never happened, it's not reality, but she's like, I'm still mad at you.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It's like, it's not even a thing, but it still kind of is, because but then an hour or two later you can hardly remember the dream.
Yeah,
subconsciously happens. So you're
exactly.
It's like, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if everybody can relate to that, but
it's like when you there.
But I think how it is. I think everybody has a story.
Yeah, it's like when you dream about falling, and then you wake up because you got to go pee because you're just falling, and then all of a sudden you fall when you get out of bed. You fall.
Yeah,
down.
exactly. Okay,
it's like just bang bang. You're like, well, that's like it just But it's really confusing because you don't like, where am I? How do I get here? When you were there, and then you go into this dream state, and you come back to reality, and it's hard to grasp. Like it's just it's very confusing, and it's you lose your things are spinning, and
it's a lot more real than I think people realize. The term PTSD and all of that, I think, doesn't have the understanding for people to take it seriously.
No,
especially the way you just described it. So
you're physically in that moment.
Yeah, it's a physical state.
Your brain, you're in that. You're reliving that.
You reliving that, and it's very vivid. And the feeling, you don't feel pain, but the frightness, the scaredness, it's right there. It's in the moment. And to go from every day, like walking down the street whistling, to a bear's chewing on you, you're fighting for your life, to back to reality again, and it's just, you're confused. Like, does this just happen?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the bear at? I was just getting chewed on by it, but why am I surrounded by four walls? Like, it's.
So what did you do in that process? Where did you go, and who helped you, and what's the way to be able to manage going through those experiences?
So I saw, in the hospital, I was seeing a couple therapists for it. And it was just trying to find the triggers or what things started, so that we can narrow it down, things to avoid. If it was a stressful day at work, then I take, if it's a really stressful day at work, that would be possibly a trigger. So I had some sleeping meds to help me sleep, so I could be able to get some sleep. And if I had a stressful day at work, have like a mindful time, to relax and reflect on things, to help with it, so it doesn't cause a problem at night.
So stress and fatigue was kind of making you more prone for something like this to happen.
Correct. So that was the main thing. So if I was very stressed out, very fatigued, the chances of me having a nightmare was 100%. Diet, I kept track of it just to make sure, just eating healthy, and just to see if there was anything with the diet, like if I had too much caffeine or sugar. I mean, of course, caffeine and that does not work well when you're
trying to sleep.
No, trying to sleep, or trying to I went through some stages where you're not sleeping at all, and of course you're always tired, so you drink energy drinks, and I mean that would make the nightmares even worse, all that caffeine, and it just it doesn't work out.
You're slapping a band-aid on the wound, you're not actually fixing the problem, and then it makes the problem worse.
It makes it worse.
You didn't actually fix anything, you just
now you got accelerated
at it.
Yeah, now you got accelerated heart, and you're going a little crazy, and lots of caffeine and no sleep. I mean, there's a point in time you just
Well, what about you mentioned the example or analogy of ice trays. How do you, like, when you're making a list of things to try and avoid, there's got to be a point in time where you need to manage it, and eventually, like from our conversation earlier, it sounded like you're able to find ways to be able to actually process some of that, so it wasn't quite as much of a trigger or a situation that
it's
easier to manage.
it's like when you're a kid and you hear, or and even as an adult, you hear the ice tray break. You're like, oh, well, there's gonna be some. It's a hot day and there's like cold drinks. You know, you got to put some ice in there, right? Like so that sound. When my brain got associated with something chewing on my head
instead of a nice cold iced tea.
Yeah, instead of thinking of it's nice, cold iced tea or lemonade, right? So it's once I was able to determine what the triggers were, is just how do you reprogram your brain to think that it's like a iced tea, you put ice cubes in, right? So that's the hard part. And trying to find triggers, it was very tough. Like, how do you? I mean, it took months and months to figure out what they were. Like, one of the ones that stumped us for quite a while was I was having tons of nightmares, and everything at work was going good. I wasn't working any overtime. I wasn't fatigued. I was getting lots of sleep, lots of rest. Well, I guess I wasn't getting much sleep, but I was lots of rest, and I was getting tons of flashbacks, nightmares. They were coming, every night, 4 or 5 times a night. It was horrible, and everything was going good. It was a really good stretch for probably 4 or 5 months of very few to now, like every day, every night and one of the dumbest things you would think of that wouldn't think would be a trigger ended up being, I was getting in shape again because I wanted to get back in shape because I was pretty out of shape from all this. And I was trying to get back into shape, and that was a trigger. And it was just kind of weird until one of my buddies said, well, it makes perfect sense. What did you do before you got mauled by the bear? Well, I mean, I had a personal trainer. I got in really good shape to go sheep hunting. He goes, and what are you doing now? Well, I'm trying to get back into shape again, but I'm not going hunting.
You're right. That's a very tough one to figure out. Yeah, that would have been a crazy one.
Yeah, and he's like, well, duh, it's a trigger because what you're doing now is what you did before the bear attack. So it's crazy how your mind works and how it just puts things together for you without even realizing. And that was a huge one. And at that time, this was probably down the 3.5 year mark of having, constant nightmares and sleeping, 12 hours a week. Like, it was a very rough time.
Wow.
Then I managed to get into a program for ART, which is for trauma. And it's just basically reprogramming the brain. So if you hear a certain sound or noise and how you relate that to it, like, the ice tray, you breaking ice, you get nice iced tea coming up, right? Versus something chewing on your skull. So just the ART is like going through that process of reprogramming your brain.
ART, and
I had this on my phone.
What is that word? Something therapy, Antra. I'm going to just share this so the viewer and everybody else.
It's like
where we at? Here we go. Boom. So
I can't pronounce it either.
I had
this.
It on my
this
phone
is right here.
Antra
or auto. What the?
No, that's not it.
That's not.
That's a different one.
God.
No, that's a different one.
ART
trauma therapy. It's like a accelerated. I can't pronounce it.
This PTSD, art therapy, trauma, and PTSD.
That's auxiliary resolution.
Oh, this one?
Acceleration resolution therapy. Yeah, for trauma.
So where did he? Is this so? Where did you go for this treatment?
I did this treatment at the Foothills Hospital in Calgary.
Okay.
I did 3 total sessions with them, and each session is about 45 minutes to an hour. And the very first session I did lasted 45 minutes. And that night I slept the most I've ever had since the bear attack. I was able to sleep 7-8 hours solid, no nightmare free.
It's effective.
For me, it was, I mean, it may not be effective for everybody, but for me, it was astounding. Like, it made so much difference in my life right away.
You had nightmares every night for 3 years until your first session or third session?
So the first session.
And then you slept through the night.
Slept through the night.
Wow.
After 3 years, 1,000 days of nightmares.
Yeah, it just, some days would be rough. Like we'd be watching TV and they'd have like a documentary show and all some bears would pop on. And my wife would be like, yeah, I'm staying up. I'm not sleeping tonight, because she would stay up all night and make sure if I was going into nightmare, she would be there at the foot of the bed, massaging my feet. There's a few times in the middle of the night, she will wake up to a thump and it'd be me having a nightmare falling out of bed. And a couple times I'd knock myself out hitting the nightstand, or we'd wake up, or she'd wake up in the middle of the night and the bed would be covered in blood. And I'd smack my head or face and bleed all over the place. And, crawling down the stairs. My neighbor found me underneath my, in the backyard in February, my underwear crawling across underneath my deck in the snow. And I was out hunting the year that I got mauled out on the prairies in Alberta, and the owner of the hotel found me in the middle of the night trying to crawl across the road. I was in the middle of a flashback, and
it's so unpredictable.
It is, and it just like the strangest things would start it.
Do you have a website or information you can send to me, or that I can put in maybe the show notes, that if people are interested, they can just look on this podcast and look in show notes and just hit a link that maybe was helpful for you, that would give them kind of a point of direction to kind of start figuring some of this out?
Yeah, I got some for I could definitely send you some links.
Yeah, that would be good.
And that was one of the cool things after our podcast when we aired our session of Hunt Hard Talk Free. I had a guy the very next day reach out to me saying, hey, my buddy was mauled by a bear. And I think the story of one of the local ones that we're not ready to talk about yet, but
no.
The friend reached out and said, hey, what was that you guys talked about for that therapy? So I shot you a message while he was messaging me on Facebook, and I said, hey, what was that therapy? And you sent me a quick email link. I sent that to him. He then reached out to the family of the victim, and he was so thankful that, hey, if this helps that family, that's amazing. And we did it live while Buddy was messaging me.
Oh, that's cool.
He had just watched the podcast and was asking me, what is that therapy you're talking about there? And so I quickly texted him and could answer the questions instantly. And then I sent off an email with all the information for the art therapy.
Have you been in contact with him, Jeremy? Like, have you made the,
No. So this wasn't the victim or the victim's family. This was a good friend of the victim that just reached out and said, hey, my buddy was just mauled. There
was another one in Dawson Creek this summer with black bears, 2 women. Probably could,
I was right after the podcast that we did, wasn't it?
It was very recent.
Before, shortly thereafter. Yeah, there was a big I told you about the fundraiser.
Yeah.
Kind of a lighter story about that is we went to Coeur d'Alene's bought a table for that fundraiser and donated some prizes and stuff like that. So I had just a couple spare tickets, so I invited some friends, and the guy's brother came in from out of town. He flew in from Toronto, and he's like, do you have a third ticket? Because I'd love to come to this too. I said, yeah, come on, join us. So his wife texts him, hey, what are you doing tonight? And his response is matter of fact, I'm going to a fundraiser to support women attacked by bears. And she's like, come on, no, but seriously, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, no, seriously, that's what I'm doing. She's like, it happens often enough that they have annual fundraisers for women mauled by bears. No. It was just 2
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
it was the wording of it.
Yeah.
I can see where the confusion might have been raised.
What kind of a town did you just go to visit?
That's pretty amazing that's pretty amazing to do that. I mean, that hearing that is pretty awesome. Like, it's surprising.
Have you found, so one of the things that I learned with the podcast is that a lot of people, just in this day and age, communication isn't a thing, right? And to have the opportunity to be able to talk about, something, whether it's a personal story or maybe an experience or whatever it might be, from one person to the other on the podcast, has the ability to be able to tell that story in a way that they never normally get a chance to, uninterrupted. And it's almost therapeutic in some ways. And a lot of people feel, like if a sense of accomplishment, and it was a really good time. Weirdly enough, to talk about a conversation, and associating, fun and almost like a therapeutic element to it is odd, but it's true. We're a social species, humans need to associate with each other. That's why cabin fever is a thing, is because if we don't have contact and the ability to communicate with other people, it's not a healthy byproduct. And yet that's one of the things that we try and do the most, is internalize and feel like it's for us to own. And like what you had touched on, reaching out for help is a sign of weakness, which in reality is the exact opposite of that. It's strength, it's a strong mind, it's a lot of attributes that I think people need to embrace a little bit more. And I say all of that because I'm wondering if now in a situation like what you've gone through, does that still apply? You know, when you've gone through an experience where, you know, it's not something, it's very sensitive, near and dear, that is very hard to unpack because it brings you back and is almost, you know, maybe even a trigger, you know, where it puts you back into those that event. You've written a book, you know, and you've done now multiple different podcasts. Is that something that has helped you? Like, would you recommend people try and fight that urge to just bury it? Maybe, and whether it's through a private, like, help in one form or another. I'm not saying come on a podcast. I'm just saying, you know, reach out and be able to actually verbalize it somehow, you know, to somebody.
I mean, some people that works very well with me in the start, when we started doing the interviews and when the book was coming out. So when we kind of set the date, it was September 27th when the book came out. I found out early August, and of course the anxiety was hitting, and I had, you know, a couple minor nightmares around that time. And at first it was hard to talk about. There's a lot of things that I just didn't want anybody to know, and didn't want to, like, you know, wanting to end my life there on the mountainside was something pretty hard for me to actually put down on paper and share that. That was very tough and very hard for me to talk about it. And I mean, on the Hunt Hard Talk Free podcast was the first time I've actually admitted it and said it myself instead of in the book. That was very tough. And now talking about it, it's a little bit easier, but still it's tough.
It was a tough question to ask.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it to light because it was in the book. So I knew it was something that you had put down on paper that everyone would read. And I wanted to.
You're talking about asking him to come on to the podcast?
Well, no, in the podcast, I asked him about, so I asked him about coming onto the podcast. We set it up. That was great. He sent me a digital copy of the book before it was released so I could read through it. I read it cover to cover in a couple sittings because it's so riveting and so gripping. So quick plug, if you haven't got the book, get a copy of it.
I was going to plug the hell out of it. I'll just throw it up here while you're talking.
So while I read the digital copy, that was one thing that really hit me hard, as I mentioned earlier, and I had to stop and I'd go back and reread it. Is that what had happened? And it is one very short paragraph within it. And so it was just on my list of talking points that I wanted to talk about and commend him for being able to put that in writing, because that would be so difficult. So I brought it up, I'd say in a fairly respectful manner. And I asked you about it and made note of it, and you responded to it. I won't say quickly, you responded to it and moved on. And so of course at that, I picked up the social cues and continue on with the story and get into the next part of it. So I mean, for me, it's absolutely amazing to hear you dig in a little bit more now. And you've openly talked about it on this podcast here and now, which I didn't dare ask another question about it because I picked up on the cues and noticed the uncomfortable vibe in the response. So move on, because there's still an epic story to continue on with, right? That's not what the story is about, but I think it speaks to the despair and the lack of hope that you were at in that stage, not the pain, but the lack of hope. And that's what it comes down to, is you didn't expect to make it out of there.
No.
And so with the pain level that you were at, with everything, with falling down into that river valley, with everything that had happened up until that point, like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I pushing this on longer? Why am I enduring this horrific 20 out of 10 pain level here with no hope or so little
The unbearable
hope,
pain
We
level.
were talking
Yeah.
about, mental stamina and strength, and the human body is just a machine and is designed to want to survive. That's standard, I think, just with humans. The biggest factor, though, is the mind.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the deciding factor between people who, get past comfort zones and have goals and achieve, really successful, uh, things for themselves in their life, and other people's who might not, because there's a lot to be said about, the mind. And what you had, just done, setting goals, from the time that you encountered that bear, all the way up until you got help, little nuances like how other people were reacting after you had just gotten yourself out of the bush and driven all the way to the lodge, and the initial shock that people had of, scatter or disorganization in one form or another. And you're able to bring that sense of calm to people to allow them to be able to react a little bit more efficiently and with sound mind. To have gone through that experience speaks tremendously about, I'm going to just say you're a tough son of a bitch, physically too, but more so mentally. I mean, that is it's attributes that I would hope that I would be able to portray and hold myself to if I was ever in that situation. The thing is, I've never been in that situation. So ideally in my mind, it's like if I was years ago to encounter a bear, it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to dodge the guy or the bear with a tree. How you think you're going to react and the reality of a lot of things, wildly different. So, hats off to you and your ability to now even follow through with all of that in the form of being able to write a book and talk about it in as much detail. I'm shocked at how much detail and you're able to articulate a lot of, you brought us into the experience that you had. That is not easy to do. Most people that are in situations like that, it's one of the things that cops end up training. You don't take witness statements from people that were in traumatic situations, because the ability of their memory and their perception a lot of times are wildly different. And there might be a lot of differences with what your story is, but they overlap, I think, with exactly what had happened with the fact that you went out there, and the timelines and everything else correlate to your story. So just that reinforces the fact that, your ability to be presence of mind and rational is uncanny, in my opinion. And I'm thankful that you were willing to come on and share your story, because I really do think that, proof is that, Hunt Hard Talk Free episode with Aaron touched a lot of people. And
definitely
that it would be a shame if those same people never had that ability to hear your story because of whatever reason, so you're really making a positive change out of all this. It's huge. It's massive.
I at least had from that podcast, within the first week, at least half a dozen people reached out to me and asked me, they wanted to come talk to me and share their story. At that time, I was doing book signings in a little town called Eckville at a place called Stacy's Happy Place. It's a little used bookstore in a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And this one guy drove over 8 hours just to come tell me his story. And that was amazing. And he said, I heard it on Hunt Hard Talk Free. And, it took me a week or so to figure out if I'm going to come down to you. And he didn't want to talk to me. He was sitting there in this little tiny bookstore, and he just didn't want to come talk to me. So I approached him, and then he was telling me about his story and just wanted, how would I get over that situation? And it's really hard everybody's different, but I just, just kind of things that what I did what worked for me, like the backpack and the clothes that I got attacked in. That's a trophy. I hang that on my wall and I'm proud of it. It does bring back some emotions, but happy emotions. Like I survived that. I made it through that. To me, that's a trophy. It's something that should be hung on my wall, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I agree 100%. We should do some plugs here and then maybe wrap things up. We're probably like well over 3 hours here.
Are we?
Yeah.
We started 8.
I'm looking at my thing here. It says
3.5,
3 and a bit.
That's it.
But I'm not saying let's shut her down. It's just I'd like to kind of make sure we touch on some stuff that I think is worth touching on before your book. So I'm gonna share this again. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, it's called,
and it's also on corelanes.com.
Yeah, corelanes.com. you definitely got to pick it up there. Yeah. Or
well, I was gonna touch on the Hunt Hard Talk Free, but Amazon here it's $25 for paperback. And yeah, that's pretty. Is it only on Amazon?
No, it's on
corelanes.com.
Besides Corelanes,
it's on corelanes.com, grizzlydude.ca.
There we go.
You know what? Actually, we should bring that up. Let's corelanes.com here before we move on. Let's share it.
I hope the boys have updated that we got them back in. We just got them back in stock today, so hopefully
today.
I don't know if they've hit the website.
Oh, today. You're gonna call me on that. Oh,
actually,
wait a minute.
They hit the Facebook. They're on Facebook.
We did push it on Facebook.
Yeah. So you can get the book on corelanes.com, grizzlydude.ca.
Grizzlydude.ca. Do you have shipping?
Yes, I do.
Perfect.
You also can get the book at Rocky Mountain Books, Chapters Indigo, your local bookstore. It's also at Stacy's Happy Place, a little used bookstore at Eckville. Trapper's Gordon,
Trapper Gordon's in Grand Prairie.
Yep. Poacher's Corner.
Holy crap.
The Fishing Hole even carries it. Calgary and the Edmonton location.
Backcountry's about to be carrying it in Fort St. John.
Yeah, actually Backcountry does carry it.
I don't see it on your website, Aaron.
Search for it.
It's called Mauled, Life Lessons Learned from a Grizzly Bear Attack.
I do want to ask you though, while he's gonna hold me to this.
Well, I gotta find out now. We plugged the hell out.
No, because it was out of stock until today. So
you got it there.
It's on there. It's the most viewed.
There you go.
That's because I was on there for like last hour looking at it.
Oh, it's more expensive than Amazon.
Oh, but how much? They were
25 cents.
Oh, okay.
But they had $10 shipping.
I will say more money if you buy it on this website goes into his pocket than if you buy it off Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're shopping. Is this in
moving forward?
The Dawson, Aaron, the Dawson Creek store and the Prince George?
I don't know if PG has got their shipment yet. They ordered it after we sold out on the first shipment. We sold out our first. I mean, normally we'll order a dozen books to test out how books sell in the store, and we've got 3 book racks and stuff. So we ordered a case of 30 books. They sold out within about 23 days to sell out the whole case. So we got a second case coming, and now talking to Jeremy, we're going to be buying more just directly off of him moving forward. We're just trying to figure out the logistics of shipping to get from him to us, but we want to do what we can to support Jeremy and get his story out there to as many people as possible. I mean, when you look at it on Amazon, it is in their top selling books and has been now since August.
Yeah, since pre-sales, actually in pre-sales, it hit in the top 156 books, bestsellers on Amazon. And when I looked it up, there's 33 million titles sold on Amazon.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so now I think it's sitting around the top 4,000 on Amazon, and it's kind of hanging around the 2,000 to 4,000 mark. Well, since it came out. So the book was released on September 27th, and by the second week of October, it was completely sold out. The first print was 2,500 copies.
Wow!
And it sold out in, like I said, in 3 weeks. And then they did another print, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that is also sold out because I'm doing this book signing tour here of Grand Prairie and Dawson and Fort St. John. So I was hoping to get more books, but yeah, I can't because they don't have any.
Everybody's it seems to be right across the board. Did they tell you when you're going to be able to get more stock?
I think early January. I think they're going to do another print.
Okay.
I hope so because I got some sportsman shows to do. I've been invited out to do some presentations and, make another couple book tour trips, maybe another podcast trip.
We can talk to you about the Wild Sheep Society Foundation fundraiser that's happening in Dawson Creek in February.
Okay.
And I'll hook you up with Corey Green, who oversees a lot of that here as well. And we whatever connections we have, we'll throw them your way, because if it helps,
what about graph
brand and throw it out there?
What about like shirts, hats? You have a tremendous amount of
merch.
Yeah,
So
we can't forget about that.
So there's lots of Grizzly Dude merch. It was I was nicknamed the Grizzly Dude from the 9-year-old boy, the first one that saw me. So after the mauling, no one really knew my name, and they wanted to keep it quiet, so they called me the Grizzly Dude. And so that name stuck all throughout the hospital, and even now. And it was kind of funny. It was more like at work we're messing around with logos just for giggles, just to see. And we were like, oh, the Grizzly Dude, and we came up with this logo. And some people at work saw it, like, oh, when are you going to make shirts? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, well, we want to order some shirts. And it ended up being, oh, I got to do this. So we got a bunch of shirts and Grizzly Dude, and then you can bear it. I think that's the slogan.
You can bear it.
You can bear it.
I like that one.
I thought it was fitting. Yeah, I like to. My goal is I like to help people with who suffer traumatic events like this in the wilderness, and I like to raise money and put it towards helping people with PTSD in these traumatic situations. So with the merge, I like to go down that path where if I can start raising some money to help put money towards PTSD and ART therapy, just so that more people like me can actually get some help and have somebody to talk to. That's what I really want to do. And I'm just starting out of this, so I'm not the greatest at it. My website kind of sucks, but
I think you're gonna have a lot of support behind you. So
yeah, so
sounds good.
That's the direction I want to go, and I want to, like I said, I want to raise as much money as I can to help people who are in my situation. I know I'm sure there's a few out there that.
And if there's people that we can hook you up with, or if you're watching and you're someone that can help with any of these things, whether it's the branding, the merchandise, the website and e-com, or even just setting up a nonprofit. I don't know if that's the route to go with this at this point, but whatever, if you've got suggestions, I'd say reach out to Jeremey. Feel free to reach out to us at Core Lanes, and I'll push that to Jeremey. I don't know if you've got an email that you make public at this point.
Yeah, the email I got is grizzlydude01@gmail.com, because Grizzly Dude is already taken. So whoever has that, I want it.
you're gonna have to buy it.
Way to find it.
What's the price?
Did I miss it though? Where do we get your merch?
Grizzlydude.ca.
Okay, let me look that up.
www.grizzlydude.ca. I got that one. You can also send any questions through there. I got the shipping thing kind of figured out. But if you want to order merch on there and the shipping seems a little off, just send me a message and I'll hook you up. We'll figure out a way to overcome it. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a bear fighter. Professional.
So do you?
Perfect.
Where's your podcast found, Aaron? Actually, first, here you go. Here's grizzlydude.ca. Let me share this here real quick just to make sure everybody has a chance to see it. Boom. So your merch, you've got obviously your book on there. You've got shirts. What are these ones here? Those muscle shirt and quick dry?
Yeah. So I got like the athletics quick dry shirt, and then the long sleeve muscle shirts. So those ones are for the professional bear fighters. They're very tight and make your muscles look nice and big. The quick dry shirts are just like a regular t-shirt that's great for hiking. We got cotton t-shirts for men and women. So the women's shirts come in a wild raspberry, so it's kind of like a pink, camel, and gray. And the men's, I got camel, lime green.
Do you have hats?
I do. I also have baseball caps.
It's not on here. If I
this is that's because I sold out today, so they come off the webpage as soon as they're sold out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could send you pictures, and I also have toques, but they also sold out.
It's that time of year.
Yeah, it happened so quick. I didn't know.
And I'm gonna pull my comment about buy it on corelanes.com. If you're looking for the book, go straight to his website and buy it directly off Jeremey on the Grizzly Dude if they're in stock.
Yeah. And if they're in stock and you want them signed, I definitely sign it.
Hey, there you go. That's cool.
And I personalized it to the person. So
excellent Christmas gifts.
Yes. Hunt hard, talk free. So I'm looking on the website here. Where do you find that? It looks like just you've got it on YouTube. You got a YouTube channel?
We've got a YouTube channel, Coeur d'Alene Sporting Goods, on YouTube, but we're also on Spotify, Apple, everywhere you find your standard podcast. You can download the Hunt Hard Talk free. And Jeremy's actually going to co-host an episode tomorrow night with another epic survival story, but I won't get into that. We're just waiting for the guest to show up tomorrow morning. So
isn't that tonight?
Yeah, you don't want to advertise too much. I've been burnt a few times where it's like, yeah, got a guy coming on that never
showed up.
It's part of this is how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But anything else that we should touch on here?
Well, so what we talked about today is basically the first, I guess, 65 pages of the book. I mean, that's it. I mean, it took us, it probably, took us 3 hours to talk about the first 75 pages, but yeah, I mean, in actual fact, probably take you 3 hours to read the whole book. And the book is written more for I guess it's described as a inspirational, tragic love story, if that makes any sense. That's what most of the women listeners or readers have told me about it. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, but so the book goes through it's
like Twilight, but for men.
Yeah. But like 85% of the people that buy the book are women, which is interesting.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. It's mostly women that buy it. Oh. And they say they're buying it for their husbands, but yeah. I'm buying this for my husband. Can you sign it too, Stacy? Yeah. So the book is written, inspirational and about the lessons that I learned from the Grizzly Bear Attack. I mean, what lessons can you learn other than make sure you have your bear spray on you, go with somebody, don't be an idiot. But some of the lessons I learned were family comes first. Like, that's a big thing. You always want to go home safe and sound to your family. So, and be prepared for it. When you set many goals, you can achieve incredible things. Like, I didn't think I knew I wasn't going to make it out, but here I am today talking about sharing my story and make sure you get that word out. So when you make those small goals, you can achieve incredible things. And asking for psychiatric help is not a weakness. That is strength. And I can't say enough. If you go through some kind of trauma, talk to somebody. They will help, and trust them when you're talking to them. Don't just think that it's all hokey pokey. They're not going to help you. Trust them. They're there to help you, and they're non-judgmental. No therapist is ever going to be judgmental. They're open-minded, and they're there to help you. They won't make fun of you. They won't say anything. They're there to help you. Yeah, and family comes first. That's one of the biggest.
You touched on, I guess, the bear spray too. I think it'd be worth kind of touching on as far as proper preparation when you're in the wilderness. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious and self-explanatory because you were talking about bear spray at the bottom of your pack and your gun was strapped to the side and it was very hard to get to. And we obviously now know that these things, even though they're huge, move fast and can be very stealthy. So, would that be, I think, part of the message is hold the bear spray somewhere accessible and kind of always be prepared in what, with
always be prepared for the unexpected. But when it comes to the bear spray and being bear safe or bear awareness is one thing that I do now religiously is we practice. I bought a case of the non-lethal bear spray or the bear spray to practice with. And when I go out fishing in bear country or hunting in bear country, no matter who I'm with my wife, with very close friends or somebody I don't know, we do a 10-minute scenario on bears. So we get out the bear spray and we pretend that, we're walking through the bush and we see a bear. What do? We go through little tips and tricks. And I just train the other person, make sure that they know what I know and make them comfortable. And how do you use bear spray? How far does it spray? So we get out the cans and we practice spraying it and see how long does it spray for? How close does the bear have to be? And one of the things that me and my wife like to do lots is cross-country ski. And of course, you need to know what's the chances of seeing a grizzly bear. Well, on a nice day, there's a pretty high chance. It's like one of the things, if you see the grizzly bear, the person that sees it pulls out their bear spray, watches the bear, and the other person would take off their skis and then help you take off your skis. The person who saw the bear stays focused on the bear, and the other person grabs them by the scruff of the neck or jacket and walks them out. One person walks backwards, the other person guides them through the bush. If you're the one that is guiding the person, you want to like guide them out so they don't fall over and have the other guy watch the bear, right? Or another thing is, if you're by yourself and you run into a bear and you don't have time to pull your bear spray on spray, one of the things you can do is curl up on a ball is use the bear spray can to protect the back of your neck and just hold it there. So if the bear goes to bite you, it bites the can, or you can spray him in the face. Just quick little tips, little tricks. So
it's not going unscathed. It's just minimizing the potential for it to get
severe
worse.
Injuries. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get bear spray in the face. It does taste okay, but it burns a little bit, but it's way better than being, missing half your face.
Well, that's, I think, what a lot of people's perception is the effectiveness of bear spray is to, whether it's going to actually deter an attack or a mauling of some kind. And maybe the second would be, the fact that the concern of it, blowing back on you and causing, more harm on you, and your ability to defend yourself, when there is an attack. I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns people have when it comes to bear spray.
And I'd say don't be concerned.
Yeah, I wouldn't be.
Get it, use it.
Yeah.
It's your best chance of survival.
I mean, your face burning for a couple hours is a hell of a lot better than not sleeping for 3 years. My point of view.
No, well, do you get a lot of feedback like that? Have you heard people, voice those concerns?
Well, a lot of people would say, well, I'd rather use a gun. They don't like a gun would stop them. Well, you're correct. Yeah, a gun will stop them if you hit them in the head and hit them in the brain. But you got to remember, you got an animal running at you. You got one shell. Mine happened so fast. Even if I had a machine gun aimed at it, the chances of me hitting it and killing it was very slim. Like, very slim. And I've been charged by, the year before I got charged by a bear. And even if I had a 50 cal machine gun on a tripod aimed at the bear and all I had to do is like hold down some levers to shoot it, I think it still would have been screwed. Like, at least with the bear spray, it's like a mist that comes out, or it's a little bit of spray, but you got a cloud and mist when they run into it. It stopped them dead. And I feel more comfortable with bear spray than I do with a gun. I'd much rather that.
I think that's a message that needs to get pushed a little bit more, because I'll admit I'm one of those guys that would have felt more comfortable with a firearm over the bear spray, but there's definitely a takeaway, talking and hearing with what I might actually next time I'm out, using, I'll get some bear spray now.
It's one thing you can look at it is, say you're sitting on your couch and you have a Nerf gun, and have somebody 50 feet away, and you have the Nerf gun sitting beside you loaded, and have somebody run at you and see if you can pull that gun out and hit them. Now, where are you going to hit them? Like, if you can hit them in the forehead, great, good chance that you kill it. But what's the chance you'd be able to pull that out, aim it, and shoot it and kill the bear in that one shot? It's pretty hard. If the bear's chewing
versus a little water gun and you shoot water, a mist is probably gonna,
like a squirt bottle. If you take a squirt bottle, pull a squirt bottle and squirt it, you're gonna get misted. Yeah, you're gonna get some. It's a hell of a lot better than not sleeping. And
we have dogs. Is now on the recording.
I like to use a shotgun with 2 3-inch with double odd buck, which is 9 BBs that are quite large, and I'm not going to say spray in a cone fashion as well, but they spread out But my wife packs bear spray. So when we're out with our kids, we're hiking, we're in the Pine Pass, or wherever, she's got her bear spray right readily accessible. And I've got the 12 gauge right readily accessible as well. And I mean, I do feel quite confident with a firearm, but she's got bear spray. She has her firearms license, all that stuff, but she packs bear spray. I pack a 12 gauge, and we're side by side, and we're just packing a kid.
It's for a lot of people that are just hiking too.
Yeah.
Especially the people that are on tourists, whatnot,
or in parks where you're
parks.
Not supposed
Dawson
to
Creek is mile zero on the Alaska Highway. You know how many tourists are going up, and they have no
zero
experience or understanding. They're pulling over. I mean, I could probably go on for quite some time with different examples and stories, but it's, I think, not just the hunter. It's a huge array of different people. As soon as how many times have we heard of stories in Liard?
Yep, lots.
Are you packing a firearm in the hot springs?
Nope.
Maybe some bear spray would probably prevent some situations as people are camping out there. So there's provincial parks, where a lot of people can't pack, but maybe some bear spray might come in handy.
The average person though could hit a 2 foot by 2 foot target at 10 feet with bear spray. With a gun, the average person couldn't, right?
Yeah.
I'd say with a rifle they couldn't. With a shotgun, with a buckshot, they'd have a better chance.
I don't know. I can't hit a bird at 20 feet with a shotgun. So
fair enough.
That's just me.
But also you think about coming through Dawson Creek. Quite often the tourists are heading to Alaska. You can't legally pack a firearm from Dawson Creek to Alaska.
Oh,
If you're an
bear
American,
spray.
if you're a Canadian, you can have that can of bear spray with you and head the whole trip, and you're protected.
Yeah. And when it expires, you can use it as seasoning your meat.
I use it to test out how they work once they've expired. That's what we do. That's when we.
The expiry date, is that just a cash grab, or is there some legitimacy?
No, because the Caspian inside breaks down over time, so it doesn't have as much burn effect. Yeah. So it's got, I'm pretty sure it's Caspian in it, and that's like that's the burn factor. Yeah.
It's the
how hot it is on the Richter scale.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my face is falling off. Scale.
Sign a waiver before you eat these hot wings.
Yeah. And pay attention to the expiry date, because it does make a difference. I've done quite a bit of research on bear spray because of this. I'd actually like to come up with my own brand of bear spray. There's thoughts kicking around about that. But pay attention to that, and you can use it multiple times. Like do it in blast, and that works just as good. If you hold it down, you still get about 7 to 15 seconds, depending on what size of can you get. And with bear spray, you wait till they're within that 10-foot range to spray them. You want to make sure you're doing a good coating.
Man, that would suck.
Not comfortable.
10
it's
feet,
not
man.
comfortable, but
wow.
It is scary when they get that close. It varies, especially when they're charging you, but you want to wait because you want to make sure they get a whole mouthful.
Yeah.
One thing that bear spray is why it's more effective than anything else is because it takes out more than one sense. And in order to stop a bear, you gotta take out more than one of its main functions, like the nose or eyes, or its breathing, respiratory.
Yeah.
And that shuts them right down.
You got your sight, your smell, and your taste are all being hit with a semi truck in the face.
Yeah. And then every time they take a breath, it burns because it gets into their lungs, and it just puts the bear in complete panic mode. And that's why it's so effective. It takes out all those senses all at once, and it's just like hitting a brick wall. Holy crap, what is that? And it just burns. And so, like, if it burns you for an hour, it burns the bear for an hour, and it's intense. And the one thing is, the bear doesn't understand it.
Yeah. That's some really good information. I don't think people have actually talked about it in that much detail before. You've changed my mind. I was a doubter, man. I was like,
let's go and try. Let's go find a bear.
Well, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Couple more whiskeys.
That's right.
We do need another. But can I show a picture? I actually got you on Facebook, but could we show a picture to the viewer, or should we hold off on there?
The other lesson that I want to throw out there while you're getting that loaded up is get an inReach. Or get some sort of messaging system that you can get out that SOS alert.
Good call.
Modern day, the technology is fairly affordable. You can buy Garmin Minis, which are a couple $100, and you can get a cheap subscription that costs you $15 a month, $20 a month, depending how much you want to use it. And and it can save your life.
You can pause those
Yep.
subscriptions too. So if you're not using it in the winter, you only pay for it for the month that you need it.
Yeah,
I turn mine on at the beginning of hunting season, and I turn it off kind of at the end of winter if I'm out sledding or in the mountains.
right there.
This one here.
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
That's it.
So like the nice thing about the inReach is like what $15 or $20 a month for 10 messages that you can send, like personal text messages.
Yeah,
it's an awesome unit. So now with me going hunting in the bush, my wife, I have to have the Garmin inReach, and I have to send her messages every couple of hours just to make her feel safe, and or make sure that she knows I'm safe. And
I send my wife one every night when I get back to camp, when I'm out in the bush. I mean, 2 Octobers ago now, I headed out October 1st with Greg from the store on a sheep hunt, and we joined a bunch of other guys in camp. We had 4 river boats. We drove north and then headed 8 hours by boat into the middle of where our base camp was. And the first night I got in there, turned my cell phone on, and I mean, we're talking the heat of COVID, and or not my cell phone, turned my inReach on, and my messaging just blows up. I get like 20 messages all from my wife, and I just start reading them out loud sitting in camp. And my 1.5-year-old son was in the hospital on oxygen on my first day in camp. Ouch. And I'm reading through it, and just tears started rolling down my face as I'm reading. And I'm sitting in a group of 9 guys out in camp, and Cohen's in the hospital on oxygen, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and just I'm losing it. I want to get in the boat and head out, but it's 9 o'clock at night. You're not doing that, right?
No.
So I had the evening back and forth with my wife, and he ended up going home before the next morning. But I mean, just to have that
peace of mind,
the messaging back and forth, we could get through it. And I mean, and then every day I'm messaging her 2 or 3 times a day, letting her know how I'm doing, checking on how he's doing. And it was phenomenal to have that paid for that device. It's the first time I took it out. I just bought it before that trip.
I think we had a scenario where you had to reach out, and I went on a rescue mission with Jody. The porcupine got underneath her truck when she went up to Windfall Lake. When camping, what is it, 3-4 days? How long were you camping for? It was 3-4 days anyway. And she used the inReach because a porcupine got underneath there, and they love copper. And it just they destroyed crap out of all the wiring in the truck there. And gave me a shout, and the dog had gotten into the damn thing. And so I went on a rescue mission and pulled into Chetwynd and got some pizza because I was like, they're probably gonna be so hungry. Showed up like a freaking superstar. Hey, look at me! Got some pizza.
But I only shut mine off for a few months in the summer now, because basically, if I'm going to be riverboating, well, turn it on, use it, and then if I'm going to be snowmobiling, turn it on, use it, because it's there. You can send that message for $20 a month. I mean, I spend more than that on coffee or other stupid things that's your lifeline.
And you know, that $20 a month, even if you pay that for like 10 years, for that flight in to come get you is like
a lifetime.
Yep.
Yeah. That peace of mind.
Yeah. Anything else? We got the bear spray. I mean, those are actually really 2 items that cover a tremendous amount of ground
and have them both on you,
readily accessible.
And readily accessible. Not in the back of your bottom.
Can you get for the bear spray? Can you get holsters that, you know, or something where it's on your chest, or maybe something you can by your side?
Coeur d'Alene Sporting Goods.
There you go.
I believe they sell Coeur d'Alene Sporting Goods. And they also sell like the best bear spray brand there is.
And that's in Dawson Creek and
Yukon?
Prince George.
Okay, I was going to say, I've got 2 brands. I don't want to say the wrong one.
I was looking today. And if you come in to the store when I'm here, you get a signed bear spray. If you purchase it, I'll sign it.
There we go.
The problem is this isn't live.
Oh, what?
It's on air till a little bit later.
This is going to be a while yet.
All right. Well, you missed the boat.
But I'll tell you what, after this, I was going to do a little Facebook Live, and we can maybe plug it then, because it'll be live real time. It's freaking midnight right now, so I don't know if many people will be watching, but
for like
it'll be out there. Well, 3.5 hours. Should we wrap it up?
Yep.
I guess
okay. So. Thanks again, guys. And it was a real pleasure to have you both on. Aaron, again. Jeremy, I mean, I can't say enough about, you know, how awesome it is to have you here. The mental stability, I don't know what words I want to use, but just the package we had talked about together. It's awesome. And I think you're going to inspire a lot of people. I think we're going to check a lot of things with your story, with some of the safety tips that we just kind of threw out there, because you changed my mind on some of it. And that could very well be the difference between someone getting out on their own 2 feet, or maybe having a very, unfortunately, an experience like what you had. So, you know, to everyone out there, this was my first video. Hopefully it's all good. And if you're looking for another podcast, because, you know, it's awesome. They're coming pretty popular, and you guys are knocking out some awesome ones. So
well, thank you.
Hunt Hard Talk Free.
Yeah, Hunt Hard Talk Free. Actually, some people from the United Kingdom reached out to me from that podcast. So that podcast is getting out worldwide.
Attaboy. That's awesome.
It's an awesome one. It's incredible how far it's reached.
Thanh you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm glad I was invited on.
Yeah. So if you're looking to be a guest, or you got a killer story, you can reach out to Hunt Hard Talk Free and Kevin Unscripted. We'll get your stories out there.
Absolutely. You bet.
Yeah.
Thanks for throwing that back.
No problem.
Yeah. Kevin Unscripted. It's, you know, it's the second best one compared to Hunt Hard Talk Free.
There's a couple actually other in town that we need to plug a little bit more. It's becoming popular, and anybody who's got anything local, I'm all about it. Yeah. I think I'm going to throw one out there now too, because we're on it, and I haven't met these guys, but I've listened to a couple and they weren't bad. But they're the Blue Collar Philosophers. They're in Fort St. John.
Oh, okay.
And they're just a couple of guys that are making a go of this.
Yeah.
And we'll throw that out there.
Yeah.
Anybody, I mean, we got this area packs a punch, and it's nice if we get some of that
Support
valuable. I'm all about it. 100%.
Support local.
Yeah.
Yeah. Support local. You guys are awesome. You guys have a great community up here, and it's awesome to see that you guys are supporting those bear attack victims and that. That's awesome. I mean, you guys are great.
One more thing. I know we're going to drag this on, but I've been doing this for a little over a year. It's been self-funded. And the last episode and this episode, I was able to get a bloody sponsor for just the 2 episodes.
Excellent.
Pretty cool. Dan's Rentals, Fort St. John, and they have Fort St. John and Grand Prairie. I'm going to do a little bit more of a commercial at the beginning, but I mean, I want to throw that out there. It's like, I'm actually flattered and honored that I got something like that there's enough value for someone to be able to throw me money to be able to put their name on this fucking thing. So it's awesome.
Dan's Rentals.
Dan's Rentals.
Thanks,
Dan. Right on.
All right, guys.
Pick up your rental equipment from Dan's Rentals.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah,
I like it.
The Grizzly Dude supports Dan Rentals.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you guys out here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.